Taoiseach, your government is a serial waster of the public's money. Your waste leaves people shaking their heads in disbelief. The lack of accountability angers people. No accountability for the 336,000 bus shelter or bicycle shelter, nor for the €1.4 million security hut, nor for the doubling of costs for modular housing, and that's before we even mention the Children's Hospital. Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil squander taxpayers' hard-earned money, and when you're caught out or when you're challenged, you just shrug your shoulders and dismiss the public's anger. Perhaps, though, the most mind-boggling example of your waste is your decision to spend €9 million on phone pouches for secondary school students. That's €9 million on phone pouches. Contrast this with your failure to fund schools correctly as they struggle to keep the lights and the heating on. Only €10 million additional money for that. Worse still, you could only find less than €3 million for youth mental health services that are on the floor. Taoiseach, when you were called out for this waste, you claimed that this €9 million pouch investment was a once-off cost. In fact, the big message in Minister Norma Foley's article on the journal.ie defending the government's decision was €9 million for phone pouches is a significant once-off investment. But that's not true. As we have learned from documents obtained by my colleague Pearse Doherty through Freedom of Information, what Minister Foley failed to tell the public that there will in fact be a cost of almost €2 million for these pouches annually. Government knew this, and yet you continue to peddle the spin that this was a once-off investment. And to make matters worse, Taoiseach, these documents also showed that government was presented with several common-sense options for dealing with mobile phones in schools. Option 1. Phones to be left in students' bags, with students not allowed to use them during the day. Cost to the public purse, €0. Option 2, phones handed in at a central point. Cost to the public purse, €0. Option 3, placement in student lockers. Cost to the public, €0 beyond the cost of the locker. So, you turned down 3 common-sense solutions that wouldn't have cost the public a single red cent. And instead, you have gone with an option that will cost the taxpayer €9 million initially, and then a further €2 million every single year. You actually couldn't make this up. The incompetence of this is off the charts. And dressing this up, Taoiseach, as a mental health measure is just so insulting to young people in mental health crisis and locked out of the services, care and support that they desperately need. What this shows, again, is that your government can't be trusted to spend the public's money wisely. You can't be straight with people about your waste, and you refuse to be accountable for your mess. Dúirt an Oireachtas lingar costas Anna éanóra a bheith sa caiteachas €9 milliún fócaí de phone póca. Ní raibh sé sin fear. Tictar inis go méid costas bliain túil beagnach €2 million inis an phobal. Taoiseach, why do you and your government continue to tell people that the €9 million spent on the phone pouches is a once-off cost when you know that this is not the case? And can I appeal to you to scrap this scheme and invest that money in mental health services for our young people?
Taoiseach, please.
Thanks very much, Deputy McDonald, for raising this issue. I'd make a number of points. Firstly, when you like to talk about the state of our economy in terms of the use of taxpayers' money, you do leave out a number of facts. You do leave out the fact that this is a country running a budget surplus, that we've managed to put aside billions of euro to protect people from future economic shocks, and I think that decision is looking even better today than it was yesterday in light of global issues. You forget the fact that we're actually able to give people back some of their own money as well. So I look forward to debating this government's record in terms of managing our economy and managing the public purse versus your policies and your spend it all, leave nothing for the buffer times, or leave nothing if there's any transatlantic trade shocks, a policy that quite frankly looks utterly foolish and ridiculous today. Second point I'd make is this. The issue of phone pouches wasn't invented in the Department of Education or in government or by any political party. This came about, Deputy, by listening directly to school principals. And I'm sure you, like me, listened to radio. I'm sure you heard the students on Morning Ireland a couple of days back after this announcement. I'm sure you heard them talking about the benefit they had found from these pouches. I'm sure you've met the school principals, including the one in De La Salle College in Churchtown, where they introduced these self-locking pouches after staff reported an increase in disruption and how time-consuming it was, and how the principal highlighted how this initiative had improved the social skills of the students, had seen an increase in participation in extracurricular activities. So this is a government listening. You talk about listening. It's important to listen to people on the front line. We've listened to school principals. We've listened to teachers. And you know what we listened to? We've listened to the students. And it is the feedback from many students, and I'm sure they'll be in touch with you today, schools that have benefited from this initiative. That's where the idea came from. This is not an obligatory or mandatory measure. Nobody's going to demand a school take school pouches. This is if a school wants to avail of this, it's about 20 quid per student, a €20 investment, a €20 investment in the mental health and well-being of a student. And please don't say to me that it's in any way insulting to link this to mental health. It's not me linking it to mental health, it's the young people themselves. This is about a government listening and responding, because in schools right across the country, different schools have tried different initiatives to deal with smartphones. And you're right, some schools have adopted the suggestions that you've made, other schools have tried different approaches, and it's important that we help and assist in relation to that. Next point I'd make is this. You suggest that this all happened in isolation, and that this was the only investment in education, where of course this government has invested a huge amount in education, including in the most recent budget. We've allocated €12 billion to the Department of Education. It's going to help students, parents and education staff, including €51 million to extend the free school book scheme to students, benefiting 940,000 students. We have increased the capitation rate, which you've called upon us to do. We've done that. We've increased the capitation rate from €200 to €224 per student in primary schools, and from €345 to €386 per student in post-primary school. This 12% increase will assist schools with increased day-to-day running costs, because I know running costs are a real issue. In addition to that, we provided €45 million in cost of living supports for all primary, special and post-primary schools in the free scheme to help them deal with costs. We've employed more special needs assistants, more special education teachers and more teachers in general. But the most breathtaking thing about your presentation today is that in Northern Ireland, where you hold the Department of Finance, you're rolling out a similar initiative, but you know what? It's costing a hell of a lot more.
Here. Yeah.
So, you talk in billions when it suits you, but then you penny pinch on the essentials. So you did increase capitation for schools by €10 million. Now the capitation money is what keeps the show on the road. €10 million isn't enough, and well you know it. €10 million for that to light and heat schools, and then €9 million and an additional €2 million year on year for phone pouches. I listen very carefully to people, Taoiseach. I have not met one teacher who approves of that use of public money. I have not met one family, I have not met one taxpayer out on the beat who thinks that that was a smart use of money. As a matter of fact, people are outraged by that, and all the more outraged when they discovered that a mere €3 million from all of your billions, €3 million for youth mental health services, at a time when you hear a lot from young people, their families, their educators, about how desperately people need these services, and the fact that they wait and wait and wait. I asked you to confirm, and you might do so for the Dáil, that actually €9 million is the initial outlay on these phone pouches, and that it will in fact cost the taxpayer €2 million annually for this scheme. Can you confirm that as a matter of fact, Taoiseach? I have the documentation here.
Taoiseach, please.
So is it your position, phone pouches bad here, phone pouches good in Northern Ireland? And if it's not your position, will you call on the Sinn Féin Minister for Finance in Northern Ireland today to speak to her executive colleague and stop the rollout of the phone pouches in Northern Ireland. Because in Northern Ireland, you've already spent £250,000 on the provision of phone pouches. So phone pouches are clearly good in Northern Ireland for the children, but not good down here. Well, then you should really stop. Well, then you should stop. Then you should stop doing. Then you should stop. No, sorry, I'm just asking. I'm allowed to speak if that's okay. So that's the first point. The second point is, you say you haven't met these people. But you mustn't be listening to the radio. There have been school children on the radio talking about the benefit in their school. There have been school principals. I referenced a school principal there in Delasall in Churchtown. There's references on Tuesday the 5th of November, which I think is yesterday, an article by Ken Fox of 6 different schools who've been contacted about their experience of the pouches, all of them describing it as very positive. This idea is coming from schools. Yeah. It's not mandatory. It's not obligatory. It's government listening to teachers, listening to principals and providing them with another option. It's €20 per kid to help support their mental health if the school wants it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.